Welcome. Thanks for checking into Gunfighter Life. On this podcast, we come at gunfighting first and foremost from a Christian worldview, Judeo-Christian values, and from real-world first-hand experience. Today, we're going to be talking about fighting rifles, some of my go-to fighting rifles, the fighting rifle setups. That's what we're going to be talking about today on Gunfighter Life. Next, we're going to get into the bio. If you'd like to skip through the bio because you've heard it before, you just don't want to listen to it, you can skip to about 3 minutes in, and that should put you into the body of the podcast topic. All right, guys, hope you enjoy. Learn a lot and are blessed by this podcast. Who I am? First and foremost, I am a Christian. I make no apologies for that. I grew up in the southeastern United States, what most would consider poor. Grew up hunting and fishing and shooting at a very early age. I joined the Marine Corps at 17. I did combat tours, plural, in Iraq. After that, I was an urban warfare instructor for the United States Marine Corps. After the Marine Corps time, I went to work for LAPD, where I worked regular assignments and more specialized assignments. I've also been a private contractor for the federal government. I've also served the United States Army, both full-time and part-time National Guard. I have been a state rifle and pistol champion in a few different states, a few different times over. I started shooting competitions even before I joined the Marine Corps at 17. I am very blessed to have all those talents, and I am very blessed that God got me through everything that He's gotten me through alive and in one piece and made it back safely when a lot of other good men did not. Not because of anything that I am, but because of who God has made me and because of how much God has protected me and sheltered me. I have served as the commander of a tactical team in a large metropolitan area where our primary job is to stock active shooters. I've hunted and fished all over this beautiful country, everything from whitetail on the East Coast and mule deer on the West Coast, and elk and bear and wolf and exotics, buffalo. I've been a professional hunter and guide, professional firearms instructor, FBI certified, NRA certified, other three-letter government agency certified, professional firearms instructor for a lot of years. And as I mentioned first, the most alpha thing about me is I am a follower of Jesus Christ, the ultimate alpha male. With that being said, we'll get into today's topic. All right, guys. Today's episode of Gunfighter Life, we're going to be talking about fighting rifles. Now, before we get into the topic, I guess we should define fighting rifle. As you heard in the bio, I've been a professional gunfighter most of my adult life. From room clearing and urban warfare and desert warfare to kicking down doors as a police officer, to doing what I do now, which is running a tactical team developed to stop active shooters in a fairly large metropolitan area. We're talking about fighting rifles. We're not talking about extreme long-range rifles, and we're not talking about sniper rifles. You heard my bio. I've been very blessed to do a lot of different things as far as guns and gunfighting. I am not a sniper, never claimed to be one. I'm not talking about a specialty AR setup for hunting, for coyotes, for anything like that. So I've got 3 go-to fighting rifles. Many of you listening may have more than that. That's okay. This is not gun collector life. This is gunfighter life. I've had other ARs over the years, other fighting rifles over the years, different ARs, AKs, Galil. But if it doesn't make it in the rotation as one of my go-to fighting rifles, if it doesn't serve a purpose, then I don't generally keep it around. So the rifles that I have for a reason. So that should say something about these rifles. The 3 rifles I have before me, the first one is an Adams Arms Evilite piston-driven upper that I've had a long time. I had it while I was a police officer doing those kind of things. Patrol rifle. It's equipped with an low power variable optic that's been on it, I think, since I bought it. And I was trying to think when I got this. I know that I had it in like 2012. I know that I had it then, and I believe I had it quite a bit before then, maybe 2010, 2011. I don't know how many rounds through it. It is kind of my go-to general purpose fighting rifle. The next one is Scar 17. The next one is a Scar 17, which my wife and I took time and did some stenciling and camoed it out. It's also equipped with a low power variable optic, Trijicon 1-4. And then we have my little 10.5 inch Palmetto State Armory AR pistol, I guess per the ATF. It's equipped with a white light and a hollow sun solar-powered red dot. Alright guys, what I'm going to do here is kind of go down the line of these fighting rifles and describe kind of from the muzzle to the stock what they have on them and why. Okay, so let's start out and talk about muzzle devices. So my 10.5 just has a A2 birdcage on it. Just a standard military flash hider that you would consider on most military rifles. It's what I had in Iraq when I was first issued my M16A2 for my first tour. You might think that you want something better, but really give that muzzle brake a try. The old A2 is the old birdcage is a great design. It's a good balance between, performance and functionality and ruggedness. It's a good design. The military doesn't do a great choice on a lot of things, but the A2 birdcage is a pretty good muzzle brake. So if you don't know why you're getting something else, just go with an A2 birdcage. It's a fine flash hider. And then my Scar 17 has, I believe, the factory that comes on it is the PWS. My Scar 17 obviously is a 308, what they would consider a main battle rifle. It's a full-size 308 fighting rifle. It has the PWS brake, which is a phenomenal brake. Everything about that Scar is just awesome. And it's a 308 that shoots like not a 308. It shoots like a lesser caliber. It shoots like an intermediate cartridge. It's a great rifle, and it's light. Anyway, we'll stick to the muzzle device. It's got the PWS muzzle brake. If you're looking for something a little better than the birdcage, I would go with that. It's what came on the rifle. And just like the next rifle I'm going to talk about, my Adams Arms Piston Upper, it has the brake that came on it, the Adams Arms. And the Adams Arms has on it a full-on muzzle brake, like one you would see in competition, like you would see on a Todd Jarrett brake or a competition brake. And like I said, I've had this rifle a long time. I ran as a police officer with this brake. This is the muzzle brake that it comes with. Yes, it is loud, but it is also phenomenal for controlling recoil. I've also shot this rifle, this upper end competition. Also fairly certain I've shot a few things with it, like animals for hunting, prairie dogs and whatnot. Some people will say that, those compensators are only for competition or whatever, but if it gives you faster split times and does all that, then I've heard it said, I don't know who originally came up with it, but what is a gunfight if not a competition between two men seeing who can shoot each other faster? The main reason that brake is still on there is the rifle just shoots so nice. And this is the most accurate AR I know of, period. Like there may be another more accurate one out there, but of rifles that I've had or I've seen people shoot or that I've seen in person with my own eyes, not what people claim to get shooting, this rifle, this AR is amazingly accurate. It is phenomenally accurate. And when you get a rifle that accurate, a little piece of gunfighter wisdom from a professional, if you get a rifle that's that accurate, don't mess with it. Don't mess with anything that's going to mess with the accuracy. I do believe that's the original optic that I put on there, which we'll get to later on down the line, and I put it on there, and it was like right on when I put it on there, and it's hasn't moved. I've beaten that thing. Who knows what kind of rough things it's been through, and it's still a ridiculously accurate rifle. And when you get a rifle like that, don't mess with anything that's going to mess with the accuracy. All right, moving on from the barrels, or from the muzzle brake, from the muzzle devices to the barrels. My PSA, I originally got this gun, I'm not going to lie, I was like, I want
an inexpensive AR that I'm going to beat the crap out of and train with and put a ton of rounds through and just use for training and nothing else. You know, if it has malfunctions, not really a big deal. If it's not super accurate, not really a big deal. I'm going to use it, you know, for putting rounds down range, for getting training, for manipulations. And I got this Palmetto State Armory complete kit. I already had the lower, and not counting the optic. I think it came with everything except for like an optic and a rear sight, and obviously the lower, for like 200 and something bucks back before everything got crazy. And it's a nitrided finish rifle. Getting to the barrel, which we're going to talk about next, that nitrided barrel is just amazing. It looks like bluing, but it's not bluing. And I've done some research on nitriding. It's super hard. It's kind of the wave of the future as far as finishes go. And this Palmetto State Armory is just amazing for the quality. And this was, like I said, before the craziness. I got it, I want to say, for $200 and something if I remember correctly. Maybe it was 300 and something. Anyway, it was so cheap that I was like, I'm just going to get it and train with it. And its reliability and its finish and everything else has just blown me away. So now it's one in my rotation as a go-to fighting rifle. So that whole upper and everything was $200 and something, and that nitride finish is great. I've had other guns, especially when I was in Tennessee, as a professional hunter and guide, they got some rust on them and things like that, even some more expensive weapons that got some rust on them. And that nitride finish looks like bluing, but it's not bluing. It is something nice. My Adams Arms upper, in contrast, I bought it, like I said, 2009 to 2012 era. And I want to say just the upper alone cost like $1,400 way back then. Just the upper. Quite the contrast. And it has a melanite finish. But even though I paid that much for it, worth every penny when you get a rifle that's accurate like that and dependable like that. And it's got a melanite finish, which I'm not a metallurgist, but it's very similar to the nitride. That's one of the big advancements lately in the firearms industry is the finishes they have. This was long before I ever remember hearing about, Cerakote or anything like that. Adams Arms just did an amazing job on their finish. It's held up. It stood the test of time. I've taken it to rifle class where it got rained on and wet and nasty. And it's just been a phenomenal barrel. It is a pencil barrel, which I really like. People will say those aren't accurate, but like I said, this is the most accurate rifle. AR-15, not bolt gun or anything like that, but this is the most accurate AR-15 that I know of, that I'm very blessed to have. That's why I haven't gotten rid of it. And it has a pencil barrel. And I really like the pencil barrel for a fighting rifle. It saves weight. And if you're actually using your rifle as a professional gunfighter, not just taking it to the range and sitting it on a bench, weight matters. And of course, the Scar 17. The Scar 17, you don't even want to know how much that thing costs. Ooh, at least I got it before the prices went up. I'm a very blessed man. I wanted one of those for like 10 years, and I finally had the money, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to get it. Worth every penny. This Scar 17, when I first took it out and shot it, this rifle is ridiculously accurate. One of the reasons I kept it. I mean, amazingly so. 308 battle rifle with cloverleaf groups at 50 yards. 50 yards is what I BZO my fighting rifles at. It's what I would encourage you to BZO your fighting rifles at unless you have a specific reason to zero for something else. Like you're a Marine and you had an A2 and you have an A2 now and you know all the holdovers and all the dialing and all the dope on the sights and you want to zero it at 36 meters or whatever, that's fine. But for anything else, I would say the 50-yard BZO and this Scar 17 will cloverleaf them at that distance. And it has a chrome line cold hammer forged barrel, which is like kind of the standard. It's kind of seen as the premier barrel finish, everything else. And FN really brings it with that cold hammer forged barrel on the Scar 17. It is amazing. All right, guys, going back to a little bit farther, we'll get to the front sight / gas blocks. Now, my little Palmetto State Armory just has the regular, just like it has the regular military issue bird cage. It has the regular military front sight post, the standard with the bayonet lug and everything else on it, and the sling attachment. It's your standard military front sight. And I actually really like that for this rifle because it's rugged. And when I was on the ranch and I was a professional hunter and ranch manager and I was going around, this was kind of my go-to tractor rifle, kind of my go-to shooting coyotes rifle on the tractor, on the truck, on a quad. any of those kind of things, it was like my go-to rifle. And those military style front sight posts, while they're not the in thing right now, they're still very rugged and very fitting for a fighting rifle. Now, the Adams Arms, my Evilite. It's got that 16-inch pencil barrel, and then it is a piston. My Adams Arms Evilite, it is, if you don't know about Adams Arms, it's a piston system. And some people will say they're not accurate, but like I said, the most accurate AR that I know of. And obviously it can't have the original military front sight post. It has a piston that comes in and out of there. And I think Adams Arms has the most elegant design piston run AR. PWS makes a good one too. They're a little bit heavier. This Adams Arms is a piston AR, and it's still accurate, and it's still light, and it is amazing. And then for the front sight on it, for my irons, I have 45-degree offset irons, which I really like. I've run those for a long time. I like the 45-degree offset irons. I don't remember what brand these are, honestly. I've had them on there a while. They work. But if you're looking for a good brand of 45-degree offsets, I do believe that Magpul makes them, and I would not have any problem putting them on my rifle if I didn't already have these on there and they weren't already set. And obviously the Scar 17 is a piston gun, and it is got the block on there from the factory, and then it has the factory flip-up front sight. It's out of the way most of the time. They are zeroed and folded down and out of the way. All right, guys, now we're going to get into hand guards. Now, if you're looking to do it on a budget, like I said, my Palmetto State Armory came complete with the Magpul, just their Magpul that's been around for years, hand guard. It's not free-floated, but it's just a kind of an upgrade from the military-style hand guard. It is very nice. You can attach rails to it. It's pretty ergonomic. It's pretty minimalistic, and I think for that rifle, it's very fitting. They're not super expensive, and they work well. The only thing is they're not free-floated. And if you don't know why a free-float handguard is important, if you do things like shoot with a sling, with a tight sling, which can really increase your accuracy with the rifle, or you rest the handguard on something or push it on something, you can influence the point of aim, point of impact, especially at distance. That's why everybody's like, oh, free-float handguards, free-float handguards. Is that going to be a thing for you? I don't know. It depends. For this 10.5-inch, AR pistol, for me, I don't really see the need to upgrade. It's fine the way that it is. But my Adams Arms does have a free float handguard. It has a Samson rail, which came out long before the key mod and M-lock was ever a thing. I like things minimalistic. If you look this up, the Samson Evilite upper, it's basically just a tube. It's a very light aluminum tube that you can attach rails to. Stay away from those big giant quad rails that were the thing, back when I was in Iraq, those big giant cheese grater with 4 quad rail attachments. Those are big and bulky, and I would encourage you to only attach the stuff on your rifle you're actually going to use, which for me generally is a white light, a flashlight. You can attach a white light, a flashlight to the rail, which my PSA has on it with the Magpul forend, and this Samson rail that comes on the Evilite. The Samson rail is just a very thin, easy to grab rail, and it's got a rail, or not rail, but handguard, and it has a rail on the top, not all the way around. It doesn't have a bunch of crap on it. It has attachment points. This, like I said, is long before key mod and M-lock, but either one of those will work. Keep it minimalistic and don't put stuff on there that you don't need. Like I said, it has a white light that I run, and that's basically it. And maybe you'll attach your irons on there. But keep it simple, guys, especially for, like we're talking about, a fighting rifle. The Scar 17 obviously has kind of a monolithic upper. It's not like an AR if you know anything about them. Like the lower on the AR is a serialized part and what they consider the actual firearm. On the Scar 17, it's the upper. It's kind of a big monolithic upper, and it's just from the factory. It's got the rails on it. I put the little rubber guards on there. It's the way that it is from the factory. It's a Scar 17, and like I said, it's ridiculously accurate. I'm not hacking on it or messing with it. It's staying the way that it is. Let's get into bolt carrier groups. Okay, there's a lot of specialty bolt carrier groups out there, and what I'm going to tell you kind of goes across the board, just like I said with the A2 flash hider or with the military front sight post. If you don't know why, stick with the regular mil spec bolt carrier group. It's been refined, it's been used since the 50s or 60s, depending on when you want to consider the AR becoming the M16 becoming a thing, but let's just say several decades. It is what it is, it does what it does. Get the regular mil spec, whether it's full auto, I don't know if that really applies to you. If it doesn't apply to you, don't worry about it. Just a regular mil spec, regular weight. The one thing I want on the bolt carrier group, I would encourage you to have a spare extractor. Extractors do break. That is, consider that a consumable, a part that needs to be replaced. It's not a bad idea to replace those every couple of thousand rounds or after a pretty intense training course. And when you get another extractor, spend the money and get a very good extractor. So run your rifle the way that you have it, put a couple of thousand rounds through it, get used to it, replace the extractor. If the other one still works, keep it as a spare. But that is one place I will tell you on the bolt carrier group, spend some extra money. Spend the extra money and get a good extractor. It's considering how much people spend on ARs, spending an extra, 20 or 40 bucks on a really nice extractor or whatever extractors cost. Get it from a good known brand. Get the best one you can find on an AR that is a part that wears out and breaks. I don't shoot steel case through my guns. I would not advise that you do it. But if you do, that's even harder on the extractor. So keep that in mind. Also, the finish, like I said, gun finish has come a long way. The phosphate military finish is fine. It's not as good as some other finishes. The nitride finishes are great. They're super hard. They're super slick. They wear very well, meaning they wear less than some other finishes. They're very, in my experience, corrosion resistant. Obviously, Cerakote is good. And they have your other ones. Your chrome finish is also good for a bolt carrier group, all those things. So if I were to upgrade a bolt carrier group, I would spend it on a good extractor, and I would spend it on a little bit nicer finish if you want. Not any of the crazy like lightweight bolt carrier groups or different things like that. They go away from your standard bolt carrier group. Obviously, the Scar has the factory bolt carrier group. I don't even know if anybody makes an aftermarket thing for that. But if you're ever taking the bolt out of a Scar, it is a gigantic monolithic piece of metal. It makes an AR-15 bolt carrier group look like a little baby. That thing is a beast. All right, guys, now let's get into optics. This is a big one. All right, my Palmetto State Armory, my 10.5-inch nitride gun. It has just a hollow, it has a hollow sun solar-powered red dot sight that I can fully co-witness, like a regular co-witness, with the iron sights, which I really like. I tell my guys all the time, don't trust your life to anything with batteries. The Hollow Sun has a battery, but it also has the solar panel on the top, which I have found to be ridiculously awesome and reliable. I was a little skeptical for what it cost, but it has proven itself. Like I said, it was my go-to tractor gun, my go-to, truck gun. It sits beside me in the Hummer when I'm riding around, or it stays in a bag for work when I'm walking around or throwing it in and out of lockers. That Hollow Sun, not always, but from time to time I'll go and reconfirm zero on it. It's always been dead on zero. It hasn't moved. It is amazing what you get for the money for that Hollow Sun. Like I said, I would advise spending a little bit extra and getting the one with the solar power because I don't trust my life to anything with batteries. And if it does happen to completely fail the electronics, I can still see through it. And I can still see my iron sights and co-witness with them. So always have those backup iron sights, guys. And my flip-up iron sight is just one that I've had for who knows how many years. I think it was in a gun bag of random gun parts. It's the flip-up standard Magpul flip-up rear sight. But for most of my other go-to rifles, obviously that's an AR pistol, so it has a red dot on it. But I've been running low-power variable optics long before they were the next hot thing. Long before the military announced this new contract with the SIG, whatever it is, 1-6. So, like I said, I got this Adams Arms Evolite. I want to, like I said, between 2009 to 2012-ish, somewhere in there. And like I said, I think from the very beginning I've had this Leopold low-power variable optic on it, the Mark AR. I like low power variable optics. I like them for a fighting rifle. I have for a long time, long before they were the trend. Like I mentioned in another podcast, military and law enforcement are generally 10 to 20 years behind the curve. If you look at things that real go-to gunfighters and people that can pick their own equipment, competition shooters and things like that, generally they'll adopt something and prove it out, and then the military and law enforcement will adopt it 10 to 20 years later. You'll see that bared out with, stacked optics, like the Trijicons. You'll see that with fighting pistols, like the Sti 2011 that I run for duty. Those have been around in competition for 30 years, and now a lot of police departments are just finally authorizing their officers to carry them because they're a fine gun, and there's a reason they win a ton of competitions. They're fast, and they're accurate, and they're reliable. But it takes sometimes military and police a long time to catch up. I think it's that way with a low-power variable optic. If you can have something that lets you shoot like a red dot, why wouldn't you? And if you can have something that lets you shoot like a red dot quickly, and then you can also dial up to a higher power. Mine generally go 1 to 4, 1 to 5, 1.5 to 5, 1.5 to 4, somewhere in that range where you can dial it up a lot for target identification for more precise shots at distance. Why would you not have that? Adams Arms has, like I said, that Leopold Mark AR. That thing has been through a lot, and it is rock solid. And the Scar 17 has a Trijicon Acupoint, their tritium sight 1 to 4. That thing is amazing. I have the post reticle. I like to keep it simple. You look in the tube, you have a big orange or a big fluorescent chartreuse, whatever color you want to call it, yellow triangle. And you can get them in different colors. But it's a big triangle, and you know what? It looks a lot like a front sight on my pistol. So continuity there of training. I'm used to focusing on the green dot on my pistol front sight and giving a slow, steady press. On my Scar 17, I bring it up, and I've got a big green dot, and you give it a slow, steady press and hit your target. So I really like both those optics. Even on my hunting rifles, I run low power variable optics, which generally most people don't do, but that's what I do. Those low power variable optics are kind of best of the both worlds with speed and accuracy. The Trijicon's a great company. I will say that I did break one of their optics, the Trijicon, in a training class, but I sent it back to them and they sent me a brand new one. And I beat the crap out of that thing in that training class. And it got water in the tube. But like I said, I sent it back and they sent me a brand new one, and that one's been going strong ever since. And I really like that optic. It's simple. It's not super heavy. And like I said, weight is a real thing. Next, as important as the optics, guys, is the mounts. Now, the Holosun came with its own mount, and I'm astounded when you look at it. It doesn't look like it'd be super beefy, but that thing has really held up. Whatever they do on that Holosun, that mount is rock solid. It has been for me, and I have not been gentle with that gun. I have dropped it. I have, like I said, put it on a tractor, on dirt roads, racing around. It has stood up very well. Now, for my other fighting rifles, I have worn mounts. The worn mounts are rock solid. I mean, they're just amazing. On my hunting rifles, I kind of switched to the DNZ mounts. You can look those up. I just didn't know about them at the time that I built these rifles out and put the optics on them. But the DNZ mounts, I think, are even simpler, and I've had those on my hunting rifles with great success. So I might look at those if I were putting those on, but either the Warrens or the DNZ mounts are amazing. They're simple, they're rugged, that's what you want. Don't skimp out on the mounts, guys. If you're spending the money on a rifle, if you're spending the money on an optic, the optic in the rifle is only as good as the mount, because if it moves around every time, then it doesn't matter how expensive and how accurate your rifle and your optic is. If it's moving around, it's not going to be accurate. So don't skimp out on the mounts. If you don't know how to mount a scope properly, an optic properly, don't just wing it. I mean, if you just want a range toy, that's one thing. But if you're going to trust your life to it, do it right. Spend the money, get the right tools, get the scope leveling tools, get the scope mounting tools, get the scope aligning tools, the scope mount reaming tools. Can you just kind of eyeball on and tighten some screws? Yeah, you can. But if it's a gunfighting rifle, if you aren't confident that you can do it, take it to somebody that can do it right. Especially with ammo the way it is now. You don't want to spend time training with a gun and then look down and you realize that the sight has moved, and then you have to go back and spend all that ammo getting it re-zeroed. Another pro gunfighter tip here, Loctite, guys. The blue, not the red. Trust me, I learned that the hard way. Blue Loctite on every single screw on that rifle. Blue Loctite, especially on the optics mounts. And another little gunfighter pro tip here, take a silver Sharpie or some whiteout or a pencil or something that you can see on the rifle, and you mark the screws that are on that mount. You mark the screws that are on those iron sights. You mark where they're mounted on the rail. You mark on there. You also mark the distance that it's zeroed for in case for some reason you forget or you don't go back to it for a certain amount of time. But mark all that stuff, especially mark those mounts. If you see that it has moved, then you know that you have to fix it. And you won't find out the hard way when you shoot at something and miss. You'll hopefully know before then when you look at your mount and it's off. That's a very common problem that you see during training or you see during like a rifle course or something like that. People, number one, don't tighten their screws right in the right pattern and to the right torque. And then they don't Loctite them and then they don't mark them. And then they just wasted a whole bunch of training time and ammo and money and other people's time and money because they didn't want to put Loctite on it and mark where the screws are. So, little gunfighter pro tip there, Loctite. All the money you're spending on that rifle and those mounts and that optic, spend $6 or $7 and get some Loctite, the blue, not the red, and then mark all those screws. Another little pro tip for that Loctite, if you know the screws that are going on there, if you're about to mount an optic, just take all those screws and put them in a little tiny plastic bag and squirt some Loctite in there and roll it around and get it all over all the threads. You get it coated evenly that way. You don't drop a bunch of it and get it all over your rifle and have a bunch of mess. You just drop it on there. Then you wipe whatever the screw head off is that you don't want, but it's on all the rest of the screws, and you screw them in. And then, like I said, mark them. All right, guys, for grips, I really like the Magpul grips. I've got a Magpul grip on the PSA. It's just a hard grip, but it is very nice. And on my Adams arms, I have the Magpul one. It looks the same, but it's got that soft rubber grip, and I really like that. It is probably my favorite grip. Now, the Scar will take some, but not other. It will not take every single AR grip, but it will take some, and this one also has the Magpul grip. It is hard. It is thin. I don't know the different makes and models, but the Magpul grips are great. They're not super expensive. They're a good brand, so there you go. The reason I don't run the military ones that come on there, I'll be honest, is that I generally choke up really high on my pistols and rifles. Continuity of training, I choke up high on my pistols to control recoil, so I'm not going to learn a whole different way on my rifles. And in so doing, my fingers don't align with that stupid finger groove that they put on a lot of pistols and rifles. So I like to get grips, whether pistol or rifle, with no finger grooves. One of the reasons I don't like the older generation Glocks. My fingers end up riding on the finger grooves. So that's a big reason I like the Magpuls. I don't like the finger grooves, but they make good stuff. They make good grips. Another little pro tip when you get to the grips, keep stuff in the grips. They make those little things that plug into the grip. I have those. I like those in the Magpul. You can keep a spare extractor in there. You can keep a spare firing pin in there. You can keep those little single serving packets of gun oil in there, which I would advise for a fighting rifle. And you can also keep your dope rolled up in there and a set of earplugs. So that's generally what I keep in my fighting rifle. I will either print out or write out the dope for that rifle, meaning what my holdover is, what my ballistics are, on a little piece of paper, and I will put that in the grip of that rifle and keep it in there, along with all the other stuff I just mentioned. Also, if I can fit it, I like to keep 1 or 2 spare rounds of ammo. Whatever the extra room is there, I like to keep 1 or 2 spare rounds of ammo. Alright guys, also I just opened up the grip in there and looked and checked, and there's also, I keep in my Adams arms one of those little hex wrenches that you can use on your mounting screws and stuff like that if one of them does happen to get loose. So all that stuff fits in that little pistol grip, and if you can, I would advise you to keep it in there. Alright, for my lowers, on the Scar, obviously it's a factory lower. On the Palmetto State Armory that came complete except for the lower, I have an old Smith & Wesson M&P lower that I've had. I think it was the original lower that came on my Adams arm, so I think I've had it, since 2009, 10, 11, 12, somewhere in there. Anyway, it's just no frills, good to go, Smith & Wesson M&P lower. On that note, this is I don't try to endorse any one brand or anything. I'm not sponsored, guys. I take no bribes. But when people ask me like a go-to AR-15 that's good to go, I would recommend the Smith & Wesson M&Ps. If you just want a base model fighting rifle out of the box, I would recommend the Smith & Wesson M&Ps. On my Adams Arms, I have the Spikes Tactical Crusader lower. Those are pretty cool if you want to look those up. It's a great lower. It does have the integrated one-piece monolithic trigger guard, which I like. It wouldn't be a make it or break it for me, but I like that it has it. I don't know why they don't make all AR-15 lowers with a mag well. Neither one of these has a mag well. I kind of wish that it did. But if you're looking at something different than the regular mil-spec lower, if it has a mag well, I would definitely give that a bonus. Although, obviously, I don't consider a make it or break it because I don't have it on either one of mine. Next, we're going to talk about magazines. I'm going to talk about something controversial. My go-to magazine is a 20-round mag. That's what the AR originally was designed for. It's a straight mag. I like it. It's in both of my fighting rifles right now. My Scar 17 has the 10 in it that stays in there just because it fits in the case, but it also runs with 20-round mags of 308. But I like the 20-round mags, and I know that 30 is a standard, and I know that, whatever. But I'm going to tell you why I run the 20-round mags as a professional gunfighter, and I have for a long time. My mag changes. I run, like I said, continuity of training. I practice my pistol magazine changes a lot. My pistol is the one, I generally have a pistol on me all the time, and I practice my pistol mag changes. And I'm very blessed to be very fast with a mag change. And I train with them a certain way. And with the 20-round mags, I can put those on my war belt. They fit in a magazine pouch, just like a pistol mag, and I can grab them just like a pistol mag because they're not super long. I don't have to grab them like a beer can, like I would with a 30-round mag or a soda can, and do a whole different grip and a whole different training. With those 20-round mags, I can grab them just like a pistol mag, with my index finger up by the bullets, and I can index. It's generally in roughly the same places when I train with a pistol, when I do my mag changes, and all that's the same. That, and it doesn't add extra weight and bulk to the gun. Obviously, when I was running around Iraq, I used 30-round magazines because that's what I was issued. And on a battlefield, may you dump 30 rounds? Yes. But as a civilian or even as a professional gunfighter in law enforcement, I can't imagine a scenario or very many scenarios where you're going to shoot 30 rounds in quick succession and not take care of the target and have to do an emergency reload. You probably should slow down and make hits with your first couple of rounds. I'm all about capacity. My go-to, duty pistol is the Sti Marauder. It comes from the factory with 21 round magazines, and you can run 26s in it. But I have that pistol because it's fast and it's accurate and it's reliable, not because it holds that many rounds. I think the benefits for me with the 20 rounds outweigh the 30 rounds. I like that they're straight. I like that they're roughly the same size as the pistol magazine. I like that I can reload them the same way. And I like that they'll fit like that in a case. I also like that if I get into a good prone position, now if you're a really big guy, this may not apply to you. But with those 20 round mags, for me, if I'm getting in a prone, like I said, I'm not a sniper, but I never have been. But I have practiced some precision rifle and competed in some precision rifle, and I know a good prone position. And I can get in a much better prone position and a much lower prone position with less exposure to the threat with a 20-round mag than I can with a 30-round mag. And the gun's more stable and I'm more stable. And for all those benefits, I think they outweigh the 30-round mag. My go-to magazine brand is Amend 2. The Amend 2, they do make the 20-round mag. They make good mags. Magpul also makes 20-round mags that I run, and I run some of the 30-round mags. So those would be my go-to, either one of those. I also have I have at least one Lancer mag, and the Lancer mag, I haven't trained with it a lot, but it seems to be as good as the Magpuls or the Amend 2s. But I would say get a good quality magazine, and don't run the mil-spec GI magazines, the old metal ones. They're not as good as the Magpul or the Amend 2s or the Lancer mags, I don't believe. Run one of those if you want nostalgia, running like an old M16A1 or A2 or something, that's fine. But if it's a go-to fighting rifle you're going to bet your life on, don't go with the GI issue magazines. There's better out there. And if your life or the life of somebody else depends on it, don't go cheap on the magazine. All right, butt stocks. On the AR pistol, it has whatever the Palmetto State Armory pistol brace is that allows it to not be an SBR per the ATF rule. It works good, actually. I like it. I like it as much as it's not as good as the stock, but it's very nice and handy and light, and I like that about it. It's also very robust. It doesn't look like it is in danger of breaking at all. I like that. And then the Scar 17, it's factory stock, factory settings. Just like with the stuff on the screws, mark it with a Sharpie if you have an adjustable stock, or mark it with a pencil. That way you know where you keep it and where you like it. And then my Adams Arms upper, it has the Magpul. I don't know the names of all the Magpul stocks, but it's the pretty much basic adjustable carbine stock. It is a good stock. It is light. It is simple. I really like it. It is a good fighting rifle stock. Keep it simple, guys. For accessories for a sling, if I had to pick just one, I would pick a 2-point sling. My AR pistol, it has a piece of tan paracord on the front sling swivel and the back of the stock. And it has a piece of paracord, and that's what I run with it, and that's what I use with it. And yes, I do use it as a sling quite often. It is an actual go-to professional gunfighting rifle. It has a piece of paracord as a sling because the rifle, or AR pistol, I guess, is light, and that's all that it really needs. And if it works and it's simple, that's all that it needs. The Scar 17 is a little bit bigger and heavier. It has a 2-point sling. I don't remember who makes it, but just a good, solid 2-point sling that's quickly adjustable for a big full battle rifle like that. For my Adams Arms, I have a paracord sling. I don't remember who makes it, but it is one of the ones with the design where it can be a 2-point or a 1-point. I've got the sling attachment on the plate on the back of the receiver, which lets me just mount it like a 1-point sling. And then I also have a piece of paracord tied through the handguard. Like I said, if it's simple and it works, don't look for to spend money if you don't have to. But I can run it as a 2-point or run it as a 1-point. I like the 2-point better, but a lot of times I will just run a 1-point if, like I said, I'm a professional gunfighter. A lot of times we run our rifle in a bag and we carry it on our back. And if I have to grab it and I'm going to like some kind of confrontation, I have the 1-point sling on there and I'm generally holding the rifle in my hand. It's not meant to support the rifle for long periods of time. It's mostly there so that somebody can't take my rifle and shoot me with my own rifle, which would really suck. So the single-point sling does that just fine. It's easier and faster to just throw on around you. In my opinion, not really better for anything else, but it serves that purpose and it serves it well. I did recently switch to a guy that makes paracord slings, parachute cord slings on Instagram. I saw him on there. It's Paralyzed Paracord. I pay full price for his stuff. He gives me no kickbacks. I take no bribes, guys. What he says is that he's a paralyzed guy just trying to make some money, making cool paracord stuff, and he's got some cool stuff. I had him make me a rifle sling the way that I wanted it for a hunting rifle. And I would much rather support somebody like that on Instagram and support that business than buying a Chinese paracord sling if I can help it. So the sling that he made me for my hunting rifle is a hunting sling. Obviously, I already had slings for my fighting rifles, but you might check him out. And again, that's Paralyzed Paracord. If you look that up on Instagram. All right, guys, this is going to be a long podcast. I didn't realize. I thought it was going to be a short one, but I'm getting on 40-something minutes, and I haven't talked about triggers yet. So let's talk about triggers. Okay, so the advice I would give on triggers is run the factory trigger until you can outrun that trigger. So you will get to a point as a gunfighter when you progress and you become a master that your equipment can hold you back. Just like a pistol. Some people will say, that pistol is going to be more accurate than you, or some garbage to that effect. That's true if you're a novice shooter and you go shoot your gun 2 or 3 times a year. But if you become really proficient, you can outshoot a pistol. You can outrun a pistol in speed, and you can outshoot a pistol in accuracy. If God gives you that talent and you possess it and you own it and you hone it, you can outshoot a pistol in accuracy, and you can outrun one in speed, and you can do the same thing with a fighting rifle trigger. I ran my go-to fighting rifle, that Adams Arms, with whatever the GI parts that came in it for quite a while, and I went to a carbine class and I realized that trigger was holding me back. I could shoot better than that trigger, and then I upgraded it to the trigger. It has a Geisley 2-stage flat trigger. I like the flat trigger. I like to run 1911 derivatives. My AR pistol, I don't honestly remember the brand of that trigger, but it is also a flat trigger, and it has a trigger shoe on it. I like trigger shoes. I also have a trigger shoe on my Scar 17. And the Scar 17, again, when I got it, I realized that although it was a very accurate gun, I could outperform that trigger. So I put a better trigger in it. I originally went with the Geisley trigger, but it honestly was too light. It was too light for a fighting rifle, too light. I did not like it. You can't have a trigger that's too light. So I went with the Timney trigger. I called the factory. I said, how can I make this trigger heavier? And they helped me make it heavier. So it is a good service trigger. You don't want a trigger too light, but you also don't want a garbage trigger with a bunch of creep. And the way I describe it, and I'm not the one that came up with this, I don't want it to feel like I'm dragging a piano down a dirt road when I'm pulling the trigger. I want it to be crisp and clean. I will take crisp and clean and fairly heavy, if I have to, over sloppy and gritty and inconsistent and light. Light does not equal good. There's a lot more that goes into a trigger. I prefer 1-stage triggers to 2-stage triggers. That said, I do have a 2-stage trigger in one of my fighting rifles. I don't like it as much, but that just really depends on you and how you train. And that brings me to my final point on your fighting rifle. It doesn't matter if you have the most pimped out Scar 17 that's super fancy and has all the whiz-bang stuff. If you don't get out there and run it and train with it, if you don't get out and dry fire, if you don't know that rifle, then you're not a gunfighter. You're a gun collector. With that, guys, get out there and use the talents that you've been given. Hone the skills you've been given. If you're called to be a warrior, called to be a gunfighter, then act like it. Thanks, guys. With that, we'll wrap up another episode of Gunfighter Life. If you like this podcast, you may like a few others. Alpha Male Podcast. It does seem to be the most popular of the podcasts. If you care about the important stuff, also Simple Man Sermons. It is a podcast that was started first that is about, like I said, the important stuff. Your relationship with God. How to know God, how to follow God, how to serve God. So it doesn't matter if you win 100 gunfights. The Bible says, one day every knee shall bow and every tongue shall confess. It doesn't matter if you win 100 gunfights and you go to hell. What you're fighting for is important. Fighting for right, fighting for truth, serving God. Those are the important things. You can find all those podcasts under the umbrella Good Shepherd Training. Thanks to being blessed on Patreon, I was able to get the domain, so it's just goodshepherdtraining.com now. So you can go to goodshepherdtraining.com, all one word. If you'd like to support on Patreon, it's also Good Shepherd Training on Patreon. Sadly, podcasts are not free. So if you'd like to support this message or any other podcast you hear, if you thought anything you learned in here was worth $1, you can get on Patreon and give $1 a month. $1. That's not very much, guys. You can give $1 and you can help support the podcast. You can hopefully help others hear this podcast. And you can also get your questions answered on there. You can ask me a question if you get on Patreon and give $1. You can ask me a question, and if you want to, if you give permission, if I do another Q&A, I might answer it on there. But I will definitely answer one of your questions if you want to give $1, and you'll get a professional opinion on, what do you think about this versus this? I'm going to hunt elk in Colorado. What should I bring? I'm thinking about getting this new hot piece of kit gear versus this new hot thing. Which one do you think I should get? Questions like that. If you want to have them answered, like I said, go to Patreon, Good Shepherd Training on Patreon. You can check out the website, goodshepherdtraining.com. With that, guys, it's like 3 in the morning, so I am going to call it a day. Thanks, and have a blessed day.